Coming up today, he's over the top on day 2 of the Republican National Convention. Donald Trump is now officially the party's presidential nominee and the man to take on Hillary Clinton in November. As the international community lines up to condemn North Korea for its latest missile launches, Pyongyang says they were part of a drill simulating an attack on military facilities in the south. Plus, South Korea's political parties continue to debate the upcoming deployment of the THAAD anti-missile defense system. We have the latest from the National Assembly. Stay tuned for these stories and more. Hello, it's noon on Wednesday, the 20th of July. You're tuned in to our midday newscast here on Arirang TV. Thank you for joining us. I'm Mark Broom. Our top story this afternoon, North Korea is upping the aggressive rhetoric against South Korea following its test firing of 3 ballistic missiles on Tuesday. Pyongyang says the launches were simulations of an attack on the south. The international community has denounced the regime for its latest in a long line of provocations. Connie Kim starts us off.
North Korea has revealed that the ballistic missiles it lobbed into the EC on Tuesday were part of a drill aimed at preemptively taking out South Korean ports and airfields. The North Korean Central News Agency said Wednesday it purposely limited the firing range to simulate a nuclear attack, with Kim Jong-un at hand to provide field guidance to the drill. The agency also said its military vowed to ruthlessly and immediately launch nuclear tests on Kim's command. In an apparent protest of the U.S.-made THAAD unit deployment to South Korea, the North fired 3 ballistic missiles on Tuesday, with 2 flying far enough to reach all of South Korea. The U.S. strongly condemned Pyongyang for violating UN Security Council resolutions.
North Korea is isolated like never before. The international community is united like never before. And hopefully that will lead to a situation where North Korea makes a strategic decision to come out of the shadows of the international community and try to rejoin the international community.
The European Union also called the missile launch a clear and grave violation of North Korea's international obligations. The international community has slapped the strongest set of UN sanctions on Pyongyang to curb its nuclear ambitions, but most North Korea experts say the regime is likely to push ahead with boasting about its nuclear capabilities. Connie Kim, Arirang News.
Now, the National Assembly is holding its second and final Q&A session with government officials on the deployment of the THAAD anti-missile defense system, with rival party lawmakers strongly divided over the plan. The ruling Saenuri party says THAAD is vital as it will protect the South Korean people from the nuclear and missile threats posed by North Korea. It also asked the government to take measures against those spreading false rumours on the internet about health risks posed by THAAD's radar system. The main opposition Minju Party of Korea said the decision has caused a diplomatic rift with China and Russia, including possible economic reprisals from Beijing. The minor People's Party is sticking to its guns that the deployment needs parliamentary approval. On Tuesday, Prime Minister Hwang Kyo-ahn said the government did not need to seek the Assembly's approval. Now, few would have thought it possible a few months ago, but Donald Trump has been formally nominated the Republican Party's candidate for the U.S. presidential election in November. For more, we go live to our correspondent Park Ji-won, who's in Cleveland, Ohio, covering the GOP convention for us. Ji-won.
Hello, Mark. After a month-long struggle and several attempts to put down his candidacy, Donald Trump is now the party's official nominee. He earned easily the votes of more than 1,237 delegates, putting him over the threshold for the nomination. The other candidates who fought Trump for the nomination, including Texas Senator Ted Cruz, Florida Senator Marco Rubio, and Ohio Governor John Kasich, collectively earned a significant number of delegate votes, but it was nearly enough to overtake Trump.
So, Ji-won, now we know for sure that it will be Trump versus Clinton in November, and that should be quite the battle. And you've been covering the convention for the last couple of days. What's the atmosphere there like?
Well, Mark, the Quicken Loans Arena, the main convention venue, was filled with thousands of delegates from all 50 states. Well, they were applauding and cheering the nominee and often gave standing ovations to the convention speakers. Well, many of the delegates that I've spoken to have told me that they believe in Trump's ability to create jobs, boost the economy, and bring real changes to America. Well, they cite his credentials as a successful businessman and have also described him as a family man. Well, of course, there are delegates whose first choice was not Trump, but in general, they seem to share the belief that Trump can bring new energy and growth to the country.
Well, thank you very much, Ji-won. Please keep us updated on the GOP convention. That was our correspondent, Park Ji-won, reporting from the Republican National Convention, the RNC, in Cleveland, Ohio. Now, a little closer to home, a Korean court will soon begin hearings on the case of a senior prosecutor arrested on bribery charges after authorities filed for an order to freeze his assets. The Seoul Central District Court said on Wednesday that the case has been assigned to a judge. The Justice Ministry is set to decide on the asset freeze based on material submitted by the prosecution. The results are expected quite soon due to the high-profile nature of the scandal. The assets in question, amounting to over $12 million belong to Jin Kyung-jun. He was jailed on Sunday on charges of accepting bribes from online game maker Nexon and using that money for suspicious stock transactions. A foundation for the victims of Japan's wartime sexual slavery will be launched next week. The Japanese daily Asahi Shimbun reported Wednesday that the foundation's first board meeting will take place in Western Seoul on July 27th. The foundation's projects will be laid out at that meeting. The projects, starting in August at the earliest, are expected to involve compensating the victims and families, commemorating the women, and highlighting the sexual slavery issue. The foundation's establishment comes around 8 months after Korea and Japan reached a landmark deal on the issue last December. Japan pledged an apology and a contribution of roughly $9.1 million to help launch the foundation. Now, the controversial purging campaign by Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan is spreading from the military to academia. Hundreds of university deans have been fired from their positions. The Turkish leader has told his supporters that the government will be making a big announcement on Wednesday. Park Jong-hong has the latest.
The post-coup crackdown has now reached the ivory tower. Turkey's High Education Board on Tuesday ordered the resignation of more than 1,500 university deans. State broadcaster TRT says the resignations are being sought at both state and privately run universities. Sources say the forced resignation is aimed at removing those associated with U.S.-based Islamic preacher Fethullah Gulen, whom President Erdogan is blaming for the coup attempt. Earlier in the day, more than 15,000 staff working for the National Education Ministry were sacked. Over the past 4 days, thousands of others ranging from the military, police, judiciary to other government offices have either been suspended or detained, with many now facing prosecution. Park Jong-hong, Arirang News.
The Islamic State militant group has released a video showing the man behind the bloody axe attack on a train in Germany. The claim has raised concerns Germany is now in the jihadi group's crosshairs. Lee Min-young reports.
It appears as though Germany was the latest European target of the Islamic State militant group. ISIS released a video on Tuesday featuring a man whom it identifies as the Afghan refugee who went on a bloody axe rampage on a train in southern Germany. The 2-minute-long video shows the 17-year-old wielding a knife and introducing himself as Mohammed Riyad. In it, he claims to be a soldier of the caliphate and vows to slaughter infidels, urging other Muslims to do the same.
In the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful, I am one of the soldiers of the Caliphate, and I will carry out a martyrdom-seeking operation in Germany, and I will slaughter you with this knife and will cut your throat with axes.
It's unclear when the video was taken, but the German officials have confirmed the man in the video was in fact the attacker. He severely wounded 4 members of the family of tourists from Hong Kong in the assault on the train late on Monday, then injured a passerby after fleeing before the police shot him dead. German authorities say they found a hand-painted ISIS flag and a suicide letter among his belongings. The ISIS-affiliated news agency AMAC released a report right after the attack, claiming the attacker was one of its fighters. If the link is confirmed, the attack will be the first in Germany claimed by the Islamic State. Lee Min-young, Arirang News.
Now, Korea's workforce appears to be greying as more older Koreans continue working later into life. Workers over age 60 outnumbered workers in their 20s in the second quarter of this year. Kim Jong-soo has more.
The Korean job market is increasingly reflecting the country's changing demographics and economic downturn. According to a Statistics Korea report released on Wednesday, the number of new hires over the age of 60 came to almost 4 million in the April to June period, outpacing those in their 20s, which stood at around 3.8 million. The last time this happened was back in the second quarter of 2014. Experts say one reason for the phenomenon is that members of the retired baby boomer generation are re-entering the job market in search of financial security, while people in their 20s are finding it hard to get decent jobs due to the slowing economy. At the same time, Korea's leading companies are hesitant to recruit many new hires because of the sluggish economy, with 16 out of Korea's 30 leading corporations saying they are recruiting fewer people in their 20s than last year. It is also worth noting that elderly Koreans are mostly getting hired in temporary low-paying jobs, such as cleaning and delivery, in addition to social work. Experts have also noted the peculiarities of the country's shift to an aging society. The number of elderly Koreans aged 60 and over was 9.8 million as of the end of the second quarter, which is 470,000 more than the same period last year. That's a much faster pace of growth than the younger generation. The number of people in their 20s was just 6.4 million in the second quarter, or just 50,000 more than last year. To address the problem, experts say the government must create policies that lead to better jobs for Korea's elderly population, while also fostering the growth of mid-sized Korean companies, which are often overlooked by young job seekers. Kim Jong-soo, Arirang News.
Now, summer is a time when most of us go on vacations, but that doesn't seem to be the case for high school students here in Korea. According to a recent survey, most choose study over fun, even during their summer break. Our Ian Shin has more.
The concept of summer vacation seems lost, to say the least, among Korean high school students. A recent survey by TOS Service Group asked high school students what the ideal way to stay cool during summer is. And 77% of respondents chose study in a room with air conditioning, while less than 20% said they would prefer to spend the season by hitting vacation spots like the beach or going to see a summer thriller. The multiple-choice survey of 5,800 students was conducted from July 2nd to 15th and released Wednesday. In another survey conducted by the same group, 4 out of 10 students said that they study more than 8 hours a day even during vacation, and nearly half of the respondents said that they spend between 4 to 8 hours studying. While there may be any number of reasons for these rather unusual replies, the survey indicates that the students are under a great deal of pressure to study, even during the times when they're supposed to be on a break. Ian Shin, Arirang News.
Now, Korea is set to place advertising restrictions on food and drinks containing high levels of caffeine amid concerns children and teenagers are consuming too many of the products. The Food Ministry says the measures will start in November and they will include banning television advertising between 5 and 7 p.m, the peak viewing time for children and teenagers. This will affect some 2,000 local products such as coffee and energy drinks, but it will also include foods and snacks like ice cream. Caffeine can cause adverse health effects such as insomnia, nausea and increased heart rate, and it has an even more pronounced effect on children. Another blazing hot day is ahead for our viewers in Korea, the third straight day of a heat wave due to a monsoon front that's gradually moving up in our direction. A heatwave advisory is in place for central and western parts of the country, including Seoul, Daejeon, Gwangju, most of Gyeonggi-do province and Chungcheongnam-do province. The capital will see a high of 32 degrees Celsius and the mercury will get up to 33 for most other regions, with heatwave advisories in place as well. Temperatures are set to peak between noon and 5 p.m. and experts advise wearing sunscreen and limiting your time outdoors during those hours. Well, that's all we have for now on this Wednesday lunchtime here in Seoul. I'm Mark Broom. Thank you, as always, for tuning in, and we'll be back throughout the day with more newscasts. Our next bulletin coming up at 3 p.m. Korea time. So until then, goodbye.